It's time for another tournament in a TeaBreak. I feel that we're getting later and later. But anyway, it's Satar here from Britwatch Sports.
And George Bellshaw from metro.co.uk.
And if we sound a little weary, it's because I think we actually spent all our emotion watching the women's final. It was epic.
Yeah, it was a really, really good match. I actually spent all my energy on the media tournament this morning. That's why I'm feeling particularly tired, because I had to get here for 8:45 or something ridiculous, and my accommodation is not close enough for that to be early. So this has not been a good day for me. I'm very tired. But, you know, it was good fun. The courts are lovely and great insight into how they play. Having heard the guys speak about it all week. So I will bore you with that some other time, I'm sure. But yes,
wait.
The women's final mentally destroyed me from that point.
That was epic.
It was brilliant. It was a really, really entertaining final. We all said yesterday that the one thing we knew, or the one thing we could be certain of about this final, was it was going to be bloody close. Mm-hmm. And it was bloody close. Yeah, it was a great match.
We came to talk to Petra yesterday evening. In fact, I might have even missed Petra. But, you know, certainly every time that we've spoken to her, she's gotten progressively more weary. And I think there's a couple of reasons. Obviously, she was on a 10-match streak, 9 or 10-match streak. But I think as time went on, the emotional impact, if that's the right word to use, of the Prague win seemed to be sort of getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And I think it was very telling that she said something in her press conference, was like, in that final set, I think after she got broken back, it was like, I just can't go on anymore. And then I just thought about the trophy, you know, almost back down to grassroots. I mean, where she dug that energy from for that, you know, to break back and then to serve out to love, of all things, is phenomenal. You know, I think it's great that she's one of the nicest people on the tour, because you only want good things to happen to her. And it's hard to believe that when you and I were in Paris a little over a year ago, she was coming back after that horrific. It just beggars belief, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a remarkable story. I think I'm almost ready to completely move on from the comeback story now, because she's being so good now. Like, this is her best run at the start of a year ever, I think. Like, the quickest she's reached 30 match wins. The quickest previous time was back in 2011, where she got it in Roland Garros. So she's done it 2 tournaments before that, really, which is seriously impressive.
Yep, and she's done 2 back-to-back title wins in a year. So, yeah, she obviously did St. Petersburg and then Doha, and now Prague and this. Although we did get a little bit of a giggle out of her, because I wanted to try and shoehorn a question into whether she'd given some thought into her first round match against our very own Joe Conter. And I'd sort of said, you know, how do you pick yourself back up? You know, you mentally, you had to get over Prague, and then physically you get over this. How do you go again? And to which she just sort of smiled and shook her head, and it was just like, no. It was like, oh, you're not going to go to Rome. But it's no surprise. I mean, she would be absolutely wrecked if she did Rome and then tried to do the Roland Garros.
It's a shame for Conte she's not going, because she's now going to get a tougher draw, probably.
I don't know. Well, so rumour has it that that it will be Keys. That it's the next bracket of seeds in that row that shifts down. So it would be Keys in that 13 to 16 bracket. But Keys on clay isn't mind you, Contra on clay. Oh, well, yeah. Anyway. Tonight's not about Joe or Maddie, as much as we love them. Yeah, you know, I get you actually. I do think it is time to put it to bed, and I think she said it as well in the first time we met her this week, was that, you know, I think she's looking forward to Roland Garros because it will bring it full circle. It will be done then. But if you ask me, winning a title in Birmingham after making a comeback pretty much buried it then. And if that hadn't buried it, surely 4 titles, and we're not even in May.
I think, unfortunately, the narrative will continue until she wins a Grand Slam. But
do you think so?
I think.
But she doesn't have anything to prove, though, because she's already won 2 Grand Slams.
I'm not saying we'll carry on the narrative, but I think there will still be a narrative to be like, look at her, she's come back from this. If there was one to come. I mean, obviously 5 years down the line, probably not. But it feels like she could win one this year.
I would love her to win. I mean, I don't think she will win Roland Garros. I think she was trying to hint today that the conditions when you get to Paris are very much heavier. I don't know that a heavier ball would suit her. I think she's done well here, 3 times well here, in fact, because the ball flies through the air and it's perfect for a game. But I don't, I mean, she's reached the semi-finals, so I mean, what do I know?
Well, she's just pretty good in general, isn't she?
Yeah, she's not bad. But no, I mean, the level of fight and the level, but not just from Petra though. Kiki has wheels, man. That woman can run and run and run. And I think most points that Kvitova would have actually won just came back. I think, if she had any other opponent, so let's just say for the sake of argument she had Garcia, I think she would have won that in 2 sets and we wouldn't be anywhere near as tired. Because I don't, Garcia's great and I love her, but I don't know that she would have had that many wheels. But Burton's really impressed me with how much she got back.
And, the big question for me for Burton's heading into this was how is she going to handle it mentally. I thought she did really, really well mentally. She gave everything she could in that match. They both did. And, it was a shame. It's one of those boring cliches, but it was a shame one of them had to lose because it really wasn't a final where you're like, Kvitova really deserved to win it, or Burton's really deserved to win it. They both played such a great part in it, and maybe we should chop the trophy in 2 and share it. But lovely for Kvitova though.
I think thankfully we ought to actually have as good a men's final. We'll just touch briefly on the men. Obviously, Dominic Thiem did back up that phenomenal win from yesterday with Nadal, and there's always a danger, I think, when you have a win that's that meaningful, that you then come out as a bit of a damp squib, but he really didn't.
No, it says a lot about him and the mentality he's got on this surface that he didn't. Obviously last year when he beat Rafa, Djokovic just destroyed him straight after. I think that actually might have been on the same day, if memory serves.
There was one day that was super rained off last year.
So that might have played a bit of a factor, but it is difficult emotionally to kind of put that to one side. Like when you beat Rafa, you don't expect it to be a quarterfinal when you're a player like Thiem on clay. That was the final last year. That will have felt like his final. Yeah. And to come again, he was great today.
And against the record of love and 6. I mean, up until then, he'd never beaten Anderson. Now, obviously, on clay...
I was going to say, I've been sat around breaking this record down all day of the love 6. I make it love 1, realistically, since Thiem was a top 10 player.
Right.
The other one that he lost in that time was
that
he
retirement?
Retired.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things, isn't it? Tim Henman beat Roger Federer in the first 5 times they met. It doesn't mean he's 5 times better than Federer. It's just he met him as a younger kid. So I think, and obviously the clay court factor, that's not taking anything away from Anderson, of course, but just to put it in context of why that head-to-head might have been so one-sided. Yeah. I thought Thiem was great, and Anderson didn't quite do enough today. He said the conditions didn't suit him. It's been a bit cold and breezy today, and it may be a bit faster on the clay. Would have, with the heat coming down, would have sped it up a little bit more, put it in his favour. But I think either way, Thiem was going to win this match. He came out mentally very strong. Every time the ball was in play, as opposed to Anderson acing, it was Thiem's controlling the point as he did against Rafa. And what I'm really, really liking about Thiem is just the way he wants to dominate every single point, regardless of the opponent. He's coming round. He's constantly running around that forehand, and it's got to be the quickest ground stroke on the ATP tour right now. It's just so quick, so strong, and on clay, so deep, so heavy, so spinny. It's a really, really difficult thing to deal with. And Rafa struggled. Anderson was never going to have a chance.
So that begs the question, because obviously we've seen Denis Shapovalov really. Let's be fair, he gave a really good account of himself in that first set.
Yeah, and I think we should spend a minute on Zverev, because I've been brushing him under the carpet all week. And in fairness to him, it's mainly because his draw's been fairly, I was going to say boring, but, not the most thrilling compared to what's been happening. There's always been better stories per round than Zverev. Yeah. He's always been on really late. To be honest, if there was going to be a match I was missing most days, it was Zverev's.
That might explain why he's so grumpy.
But
now you want to talk to me.
But he's gone quietly under the radar. He's He's done everything that can be asked of him. He's made no fuss so far. And today, he played it tight with Shapovalov first 8 games of that first set. And once he got in front,
there was no stopping him.
And he was really, really strong from there. And, you know, when we're talking about the mentality of this sort of stage, okay, we can talk about his physicality in Grand Slams, but at Masters 1000 level, he's the top guy in the world right now. Like, he's the only guy to get to 5 Masters semi-finals in the last year.
Yep.
He's won 2 titles. He's I was going to say probably going to win a third, but he's in another final. He's beaten Federer and Djokovic before.
Yep.
Team is the man to beat on clay.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if Zverev won it. I've had a sinking feeling that it was going to be the Zverev-Shapovalov side that wins this tournament rather than Dominic Thiem. And that's nothing against Thiem's form this week. I just feel like Zverev mentally might have the edge, but it should be a cracking match.
It really should. And it deserves to be a cracking match. I mean, you know, after the epic of the women, and I found this on quite a few tournaments recently, especially the joint ones that I cover, is that the women's matches really do deliver the goods, and sometimes the men's matches really don't. And it brings me back to what Caroline Wozniacki was saying to us, that maybe clay is that great leveler that just sets the field, you know, apart. And anybody on any good day, if you can learn how to handle the surface, you know, it's your day.
Yeah, and you know, as much as we love the Big Four, as Zverev pointed out after this match, you know, this is a final of the future. This is the sort of final we can expect to see at Roland Garros in 3 years' time, 4 years' time. You know, Zverev is clearly capable on every surface. Thiem is brilliant on clay. Zverev, I expect to win more Grand Slams than Thiem, but Thiem, I expect to win more French Opens than Zverev. So, you know, it's a really, really nice matchup because you've got this 20-year-old guy who believes he's the heir to the throne. He believes he's the king. You know, he's got a very strong attitude, strong sense of belief in himself that borders on arrogance quite often. But
you need that arrogance, though.
Exactly. You need a sense of arrogance if you're going to become the world's best, because you are the best and you will know you're the best.
Yeah.
But Thiem, mentally in finals of this magnitude, this is going to be a big test for him. You know.
And I mean, don't forget that Zverev's already been in a Masters final this year, so you know he knows. You know.
Yeah, he's a very, very, very good player, and
I think it's the best outcome that this tournament could have hoped for after their two world number ones, 2 defending champions as well, no less. Both went out. You know, I'd say actually comparatively early. You wouldn't expect. Yeah, you'd want Nadal to have gone out in this round. I mean, we're only talking maybe a day or so, but, you know, you would expect your world number ones to be right in there in the mix. And, I mean, they love their tennises, so you can imagine how gutting it would be to lose not only your 2 defending champions, but also the 2 top players in the world. So I think the tournament come good.
And just as another note on that sort of thing, I mean, it's a good job in many senses that Thiem did beat Nadal here, because he could have easily dropped out the top 8 seeds for the French Open, which would have been a complete disaster for someone.
Yeah.
You know, if we'd have had Rafa v Thiem earlier than a quarter-final, I think we'd all be quite disappointed. So fingers crossed. I'd quite like them to be in opposite halves. I think that's
I mean that's the thing now. I mean, obviously a lot of us here will be starting to get our material together for our RG previews. And obviously the players are trying to sort of push back on that, because there's still another, for the elite players, obviously there's still Rome to go, and then for the slightly less elite players, they've got another crack at it with Geneva, Strasbourg and Nuremberg. So, you know, it's going to be interesting how those draws pan out. And you really want them to be apart. And you probably, you know, what would your ideal Roland Garros final be then? Old versus new versus new.
I think the best final we could have would be Thiem beating Nadal in the French Open final. I mean, in terms of interest and stage and a kind of storyline of handing of the baton,
Yeah.
that's probably the best we could have. I'd obviously love to see Novak just randomly find his form and rush to the a Grand Slam final, which isn't beyond belief.
I was going to say, don't knock it, because at the end, right now, nobody's got any expectations on Novak whatsoever, and I think it's a long time since he's been in this position, we kind of got a little hint of the fact that he thought, oh, actually, this is really good. He joked that he was waiting for someone to tell him when to come into pre-tournament press. The top 8 seeds will normally be brought in specifically for an all-access, non-transcribed press, for us to get some exclusive stuff. I was quite surprised when somebody sort of said, "Well, no, honey, you're seeded 10th. There's no pre-tournament for you."
Sadly for us, I would have still liked him.
Oh, absolutely. I find him fascinating. I find him especially fascinating when he's in all access. I think a lot of the players, when you have them in that all access, and it's normally a round table, they're a lot more relaxed. I mean, Zverev, for example, he's been on late every night. Not that many people have had to stay, unless you're German press, have had to stay for his press conferences. So to suddenly have a gaggle of us waiting for him in the tunnel, it's like, oh, now you guys are here. And he's got every right to be grumpy, because they put him on the late match every night, I think, pretty much since he started playing. So but when you get him in that kind of round table without that big barrier, and he's actually just sitting talking to people, he's actually a lot more relaxed. He's taking a little bit of pressure off himself on the slam point of view. Roger came along and talked to him and said, hey, by your age, I'd flunked out of X finals, so you're doing fine. I know that people tease him for going to town on that, but actually I think that's meant a great deal to him, because I think the pressure, certainly from the German side, has been massive. As why haven't you won a slam there? Boris won a slam when he was 17 years old. You haven't managed to win a slam. So I think he'll be the first of the youngsters to get one. Don't be surprised if we see Denis Shapovalov winning a slam in the not too distant future, because that boy is incredible.
Yeah. And this is, probably by far his weakest surface, and he's still getting to a Masters semi-final.
I know.
Okay, it's not like he's run through Rafa and he's run through Novak, but he's still beaten good quality, high-quality players to get here.
Yeah. To beat Milos. Who's a player that he actually idolises, because he's still young enough to idolise active players. That you could see how much that meant to him. I think it's actually been a pretty exciting tournament.
I must admit, when I was coming out here, I was thinking, right, Rafa's going to walk this. We're all going to be
having churros and hot chocolate.
Without many storylines. But it's been a really, really, really good week. I think it's exceeded expectations. Ultimately, I still imagine Rafa will be absolutely fine come Roland Garros, and we'll just be talking about him winning it all in straight sets again. But it's just added that little bit of intrigue this week to the men's side, which was much needed, to be perfectly honest, because it was getting a bit dry.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think on the women's side,
it's always mad, so I'm always excited by the women's stuff.
But I think they couldn't have had a better story, and not to sort of dwell on the obvious narrative. If you look at how Petra actually managed to lift herself from the emotional impact of winning. And it's not just the emotional impact of winning in Prague. It's also probably the first and only time she's, outside of an ITF tournament, that she's actually delivered her winning speech in her native tongue as well. Which, don't underestimate how, liberating, I guess, that they don't have to speak English for, There was a fantastic tweet that Courtney put out to people that were whining about on-court coaching being in a different language other than English. And it's like, why? Over half of the tour, their first language isn't English. Get a grip. And for her to be able to give that speech, albeit crying down the microphone, and then for her to pick herself up mentally and go again. I mean, no wonder she's pulling out of Rome. No. Absolutely justified in my view. But yeah, I think all in all, we're up for a corker tomorrow.
Yes. Who did you say is winning?
I don't know, because we need to do our predictions, don't we? I think a little bit of me wants Team to win, but I actually think Zverev's just that little bit sharper on the bigger stage. The team hasn't quite got it yet. It's getting there, but
in fairness to him, he's not really played many Masters finals that aren't against Rafa, has he? So it's it's a bit hard to kind of say he's not on it. I'm very torn on this. I think this is one of the toughest matches to call of the tournament so far. If you're going to go Zverev, I'll go team.
Okay.
If you go team, I'll go Zverev because I'm happy to go either way.
So it's bouncing back to me then?
Yeah. Okay. You choose and I'll take the other one.
All right. I will go Zverev. I think he's been under the radar. I think maybe in a way it's something to prove, but also I just think he's got the momentum of the youngsters right now.
Okay, well, I think team's going to win because he's got a huge forehand. He's dominating everything. The conditions suit him perfectly. This is his surface. This is his time. He's going to prove himself as the next clay king. Okay, and sorry, just remind me who your prediction was for the women. Well, I mean, it was unfortunate.
So who was your prediction for them?
My prediction was it was going to be very close, and I think we can all agree that was correct.
Just a little word, just to finish on Bertens though. I mean, obviously, if you watch the speech, she became very choked when she thanked her coach, and then just had to hand the mic back. And in fairness to her little sweetie, she was really choked when she came in to see us as well. This hurt, but she is, when we do our predictions, she's definitely going to be my dark horse. Yeah. Well, actually, she can't be a dark horse because she's going to be seeded, but she's definitely going to be my pick for as a surprise win. Yeah, I think she's up to 15th now. Yeah. So I mean, that's going to be a horror fourth round draw for someone. When you think you've got Sharapova still kicking around outside the seeds, you could end up. Azarenka still sitting outside the seeds. Serena still sitting outside of the seeds. If she plays. But I mean, it could be for someone like Halep, who you might consider to be the favourite for Roland Garros. You could end up with just the ultimate terrible run of Azarenka, Sharapova, Bertens, Kvitova. Could you just imagine that if that ended up being her draw? I think she'd just chuck her rackets in the Seine. I think I might chuck her rackets in the Seine just to protect us all from the trauma of. I'm sure that won't be a draw, but it's just worth highlighting that this is going to be. It's going to be mega. Whatever the draw is, it will be horrible. Poor old Conter's going to have a terrible time, I think. Well, I think given that we know that contour on clay is tantamount to those art lessons that we used to have when we were kids, where you had to make an ashtray out of clay. I think that's pretty much where we're going to have to put Conter's level of skill on the surface, and all our hopes are going to have to be pinned on Kyle. Well, we know who she's getting in the first round anyway. It'll be Bernarda Pera. I think on that point we're going to leave it there. We'll do one more, and then hopefully if we can manage to tie our schedules together, it would be nice to do a preview when the draw comes out. We'll have to try and do it all. Yeah, I don't see why not. We'll put our heads together because we know that we do have some fans out there, so we know that we can probably try and figure that one out before I fly out to Paris. Sure. All right, I think that's enough rambling for now. You have been listening to Ros Satar from Britwatch Sports. And George Bellshaw from metro.co.uk. Cheers.